Thomas.
Hi, Thomas.
Hello.
I have some questions for you. I was wondering if you could answer. What's the best way to deal with somebody that has a substance abuse problem? What kind of advice would you give from your perspective?
From our perspective, substance abuse issues stem from a lack of self-love and great pain. Addiction is not just neurochemical. Addiction is a problem that humans face when they don't want to deal with the hurt that they've had in their lives. They're afraid. They're afraid to feel their feelings. And so they numb out.
Yeah.
And the best way to deal with them is to honor the person, to see the person for who they really are.
So try to see that person for who they really are. What if they're always on like a drug or alcohol, and it's hard to see them for who they really are because it clouds it?
Well, if you're dealing with someone who's unwilling to see themselves, the only thing you can do as an outsider is to send that person love.
Okay.
And do your very best not to judge them or to fix them.
Try not to fix them?
Correct.
Is there anything else you can do? Say it's a teenager or somebody like that who's in your family.
Well, you could help to show them the light.
How do you do that?
I think just mostly by sending them love, showing them that you love them and that you're there for them, but honoring your own boundaries.
Honoring your own boundaries?
Correct.
Tell me more about that.
Well, when people are in addiction, in process, many times they push boundaries. And as the person who's trying to help them pushes forward or allows them in, the addict in, boundaries can get blurred, and sometimes you can put yourself in positions that are not safe or good for you.
Oh.
Out of love. I think you would call that enabling.
Oh, so be aware of your own enabling.
Right, and honor your own boundaries.
Okay.
While simultaneously honoring the person who is the addict.
Is there a reason why there are so many people with substance abuse problems right now?
Well, I think there have always been people with substance abuse problems because there have always been people who are unwilling to look at the scary parts of themselves, the shadow parts.
Is that really what's causing it?
Absolutely.
Oh, okay. Do people sign up for lives where they have substance abuse problems?
Well, they sign up for lives where they experience hardship, and that hardship, whether it's substance abuse or hard childhoods, a myriad of things can lead to their expansion and their growth. But that does not mean that they are doomed to follow that life for forever.
Right.
There's always choices. There's always room to grow and change.
That's true. Is there anything else you want to say about that?
I think there's a certain stigma around substance abuse. And really, anything that takes you outside of your body or numbs you to the wealth and breadth of who you are, and your greatness, your human greatness, is an abuse. So whether your addiction is television, food, drugs, sex, shopping, anger, whatever those things are, those are all ways to numb yourself so that you don't have to look at who you are.
So there are ways to numb yourself so that you don't have to look at who you are. Or is that bad if you have like an addiction?
Yes.
Because then you don't look at who you really are?
Right. You're not interested in your own greatness.
I see. I see. What if you pass over with an addiction? Do you have to repeat the same type of life?
No. Every life is different. And you choose your lives. If you'd like to choose another life of hardship because you feel like you need more expansion, I suppose you could do that. I would not do that.
You wouldn't?
No.
Have you had other lives?
Oh, yes.
How do you know Jasmine?
I've known her from before. On some level, I am her.
Oh, okay. But you've had other lives? Tell me about your lives. Or just one of them?
One of them? I've had a life that I lived in the United States. It was a lovely life. It was in the 1800s. And I rode horses, and I lived with native people, indigenous people.
Oh, nice.
It was lovely.
What did you do there?
I was a boy. My parents were moving west, and we were not doing much of anything. We were just trying to get there.
Just trying to get there? Just trying to move west?
In a time where people were moving west in large numbers. We had a very big community that didn't stay big for very long.
Why?
We lost many people.
How?
The winter,
Oh.
the food, lack of resources. It wasn't a time where people planned. They didn't know how to plan for what we were going through.
Oh, they didn't?
It was a great adventure.
It was?
It was. We were part of the first people to move west in this country.
What did you learn from that lifetime?
I learned community. I learned that everyone is different. But as different as we all are, we're all the same.
How did you pass in that life?
I was 12 years old when I died in that life.
How?
I died from a sickness.
Oh, what kind?
I don't really remember. It was like something that made me throw up a lot. A virus, I suppose, but it was hard to have that sort of sickness during those times.
I bet. And then after you passed in that life, what did you do next?
After that, I went to be a higher being.
A higher being?
And
What was that like?
it was good.
How did you do that?
How did I become a higher being?
Yeah.
Well, I already lived many lives. And like I said, I am part of Jasmine's continuum, one piece of who she is.
How does that work exactly? Can you tell me more about that?
Well, there are parallels. Parallel universes, or as you would call it, maybe the multiverse. Things are not, the timeline is not always linear. There are many things stacked up together. So there are times when I can jump in here as Jasmine's higher self, or a piece of her higher self.
How?
Well, it's complicated, but it happens that I can just do it. She can call on me.
Are you?
It's almost as if I'm a guardian.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Okay.
And not necessarily her, but a piece or a fraction of who she is.
Does she have many different pieces?
Yes.
Is there a number to how many?
If there is, I don't know it.
Does everybody have different pieces?
Yes. We've all lived, you've all lived many lifetimes and in many different planes and parallel universes And so there are many pieces of each of us, of each soul.
So how did it feel becoming a higher being? Does it feel a certain way?
It does feel a certain way. It feels a very specific way. It feels very expansive, and it feels very bright.
Very bright? Oh, tell me more about that.
It's very lovely to be a higher being. Jasmine loves being an earthling. That's her favorite. But I much enjoy being on a higher plane and not dealing with the mundaneness of day-to-day life.
What do you enjoy the most?
I enjoy being with other high beings.
What do you do?
We communicate mostly, and we watch you.
Oh, you watch us?
Not you specifically, but generally humans.
Are there particular humans you watch?
Well, I keep pretty good tabs on Jasmine.
How's she doing?
She's doing well. She seems happy.
Oh, good. So, what did you and these other higher beings talk about today? You said you like to talk with other higher beings.
We talk about the trajectory of this planet.
Tell me more about that.
Well, sometimes we're concerned for human beings.
Why?
Mostly because you haven't quite all figured out yet what you're here to do.
What are we here to do?
Well, you're here to know yourself authentically. Each person individually.
So everyone's supposed to know themselves authentically?
That is your work.
That is. Can you tell me more about that?
Of course. Knowing yourself authentically is what empowers others to know themselves authentically.
How?
By seeing what you're doing.
Oh, okay.
By seeing your freedom within yourself.
Okay.
Meanwhile, most humans are so caught up in being exactly the same as one another and doing the same thing, that no barriers are being broken down.
Oh.
And no progress is being made. Well, some progress is being made, but it seems that lately that people are even more homogenized.
Oh, tell me more about that.
They're wanting even more to be small and to be in a herd or a pack of others.
And this is disappointing for you guys?
It's extremely disappointing.
What were you hoping we're hoping that everybody would know themselves authentically now?
Correct. That they would be working towards it.
Why? And so a lot of people are?
Not many are. There are some fringe few that are working and doing the work to become who they are and to be unencumbered by others and others' rules and regulations and traditions and religions. There are a few that have broken free, and they're still on the edge, though. They're not in the mainstream. And what we want to say is that it is okay that they're on the edge. Sometimes when you're on the edge and you become part of the mainstream, you take a risk of also being homogenized. And now everybody is trying to be like you instead of trying to be like themselves.
Oh, so you really want people to be like themselves?
In whichever form they choose to take. Whatever is true to their own heart.
It can be difficult since we've grown up in this type of way where we're so programmed to be a certain way, look a certain way. How?
No one said it would be easy.
What's the best way to be authentically yourself?
Well, to get curious about who you are. Firstly, to remember that you are a being of light, as I am a being of light. If you remember that, if you can set your intention to know that about yourself and about others, then you are on the correct path to figuring out exactly who you are.
Okay. Anything else you can do?
That is it.
Okay. And so what did you talk about then, since you were disappointed that people aren't all waking up, so to say?
Mostly that it will just take more time. And
More
that we
time.
must be patient.
Mm-hmm.
Humans are slow,
Humans are slow.
comparatively speaking, yes.
And so you have to be patient. What are
Wait.
you planning on doing after everybody wakes up?
Oh, well, that will take millennia, so I don't know.
Mm-hmm. But you just want them to hurry up and wake up?
Well, it would be good for them to wake up so that they could, when they wake up, they won't wake up to some supreme powers or something magical. I mean, the magic is in the waking up.
Mm-hmm.
The magic is in the process of becoming.
Mm-hmm.
And the more you can become who you are, the more pain you can avoid. And the more pain you can avoid, the less need you will have to be numbed out. All of these substances and abuse you're speaking of, all of these things that are taking you outside of your body, the more that you realize that your body is a good place to be.
Someone was saying that the body is what's actually having the spiritual experience. Is that true?
I agree with that.
So it's not actually your soul, it's the body that's having this experience?
Well,
This
your,
awakening?
your body is the vehicle that your soul is driving.
Mm-hmm.
So the two things may not operate separately.
Right.
Your body cannot be awake and your soul asleep.
Mm-hmm.
Your body cannot be having a spiritual experience and your soul not also be partaking in that spiritual experience.
Right.
Although your mind is separate and your mind can have its own experience.
Your mind is separate than the body?
Yes.
And it can have its own experience that's different from the body's?
Yes, and certainly that's different than your soul.
Oh, can you tell me more about that?
Absolutely. Your mind has the ability to tell stories and to ruminate.
Mm-hmm.
The mind should not be the decision maker, should not be the place in which you decide anything.
How do you know if it's your mind or your soul making the decisions?
Your mind is chatty.
Okay.
Your mind talks incessantly and will say things to you like, who do you think you are?
Mm-hmm.
Why do you think you should have that? You don't deserve that.
Mm-hmm.
Your mind will say things to you that don't sound kind or loving.
Okay.
Your soul leads you. Your soul pulls you.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes your soul will even yell at you
Mm-hmm.
if you're choosing not to listen to it.
How does it yell at you?
Well, something will happen.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe something shocking or something tragic.
Mm-hmm.
Something that will wake you up.
And that will be your soul yelling at you?
Mm-hmm.
And what do you do then?
Well, you listen.
Mm-hmm.
If you choose to, everything is a choice.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't want to listen, you can just keep having the same experience over and over and over again.
Well, just give like an instruction manual to how humans can have their best life.
Like an actual one?
Mm-hmm.
No. The way to have your best life is to follow the things that make you feel good.
Mm-hmm.
And if something doesn't feel good, viscerally, emotionally, wholeheartedly feel good,
Mm-hmm.
then that thing is not for you.
Mm-hmm. Well, how do people lose weight? Because people don't always like to, be overweight and it doesn't feel good. What's the best way for a human to lose weight?
Well, I believe that eating is this form of nourishment.
Mm-hmm.
And when we feel as though we require more and more nourishment It is because there's a part of us inside that has not been nourished, that has not been fed. And so we're trying to quell that hunger. So it would be good to get curious about why you're so hungry. Why can't you be satiated? What are you trying to fill up?
Does meat clog up chakras? The eating of meat?
If you believe it does, it does.
But if you believe it doesn't, it doesn't?
Correct. Americans eat too much meat. That's not to say that everyone should be a vegetarian.
It's not?
No.
Well, I heard that sometimes that some of the animals that are farmed and stuff don't have souls. Is that correct?
Every creature has a soul.
What about the animals that have been tortured? Is it possible that some of them are not real?
I'm confused by that question.
I heard that sometimes an animal that's been tortured for food sometimes doesn't feel anything, and sometimes they're just there, sort of like the hologram reality. It's not real. Is that true?
That is not true.
Oh, so every animal that's tortured does feel?
Absolutely.
Okay.
There's a humane way to slaughter an animal. No torture should ever be put on an animal or another living being.
So then maybe it would be better for humans to eat vegetarian lifestyle?
Well, plants also have consciousness. If we're going on the basis of consciousness, I wouldn't say that one is more or less important than the other. Human beings need food. This is the way the system is set up. You require nourishment. Many animals are here for that nourishment, and they have signed on for their part in the play.
Well, why would an animal want to go through torture?
I don't think any animal does want to go through torture.
But they signed up to be nourishment for somebody?
Right, but they didn't sign up to be tortured in that way, but to be killed for food, I don't think is torture.
Okay. Is the animal okay with it afterwards, after they pass on, if they're eaten as food?
Yes.
Okay. Anything you want to say about that?
I think that there is a value system placed on food. And I think there is much judgment around the way that human beings receive nourishment. There are many ways to eat. None of them is more correct than the other. The only value that we will put on nourishment is that you're conscious of what you're doing, that you are awake, and that you are eating in a way that is intentional, and that you understand that if an animal has laid down its life for you, that that is a special thing. It has meaning, and it should be treated as so.
So if you pray over your food, if you were to eat meat, would that affect that animal?
It would, if you're aware and conscious of it. If you say, I take in this meat and I honor this animal that gave its life for me to be nourished, that is a wholly different situation than scarfing down your food, not knowing what it is that you eat.
What does that do to a person if they're unconscious as they eat meat?
Not just meat, but any food.
Any food, yeah.
To eat unconsciously is to not know when enough is enough.
Oh, okay.
And to not really ever feel nourished.
Oh, so that's what causes weight gain?
Numbness, yes.
Okay. All right. And so the best way to lose weight is to figure out how you're not nourished and to nourish yourself.
Yes. Okay. There are many ways that we can be nourished that have nothing to do with food.
Oh. How? What are those ways?
Well, human touch is very nourishing. Loving yourself is very nourishing.
Loving yourself. What's the best way to love yourself?
Just to say it, I love myself.
Even if you don't feel it all the way, if you say it, does that help?
It absolutely helps. And over the course of time, you will grow to believe it.
Okay. Thank you. I wanted to ask about the fires in Australia. Can you tell me what's going on with those fires?
Fires are a natural way of clearing. And so that's what's happening right now.
It's just a natural way of clearing?
Exactly.
What about the Puerto Rico earthquakes?
We live in a world where there are natural disasters. They're only considered disasters because human beings live everywhere.
I see. But what is the purpose for these disasters?
Well, the purpose is this is the Earth's way of moving energy.
So was the Earth moving energy in Puerto Rico?
Yes.
And why Puerto Rico? Because it had a lot of hurricanes and then now earthquakes. Is there something particular there?
Well, it's an island in the middle of the ocean. It's made from volcanoes. There's much action underneath of the ocean. And so it's just located in this space that requires movement.
Oh, okay. Is there anything else you want to say about that?
No, I think that humans assign value to these natural disasters as well. And really this is just the Earth's way, just Gaia's way of being alive.
Oh. It's just Gaia's way of being alive?
Correct.
How does Gaia feel after the fire and
released?
Released? So it's a beneficial thing for her?
Yes.
Okay, great. Is it true that there are other land masses, continents beyond the North Pole and Antarctica? Because in ancient Vedic scriptures there is a description of such.
Not that I am aware of. There are other continents and land masses, large land masses under the water and in the earth.
In the earth? Can you tell me more about that?
About which one?
Any of them.
Well, Lemuria and Atlantis are underneath the ocean.
Yeah.
Those are entire, I won't say continents, but as big as countries. Large islands.
Oh, okay. I see. So you can't see them?
No. There's much you can't see.
Tell me more about that.
Well, humans can only see what's right in front of them. But the planets are here, and the stars are here.
Here as in where?
In our orbit, in our universe.
That humans can't see?
Well, we can see the stars, but it's difficult because many of you don't look up.
Oh, to look at the stars? Should humans look up?
Why wouldn't you?
What should we see in the stars?
Well, everything. Besides the beauty. There's so much there. There's so much around you in general.
There is? Can you tell me about something that humans can't see that's around?
That they can see?
That they can't.
Oh, well, I mean, the nature, the wildlife, the leaves blowing, animals that are here.
Mm-hmm.
All of this beauty is just around you at all times.
Mm-hmm. You were saying there are things that humans can't see, because they can only see what's right in front of them. Is that what you mean?
I mean that they don't see, that they don't look.
Oh, I see.
That they don't notice.
Oh. Is the earth flat or round?
The earth is round.
Oh, okay. Are there people in the inner earth?
Well, they're not people.
Who are they?
Well, the reptilians, the draconians live there.
Oh, okay. Do they have houses?
They have caves.
Caves.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me more about that.
They live in these caves built into the side of these mountainous type rocks.
Oh.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I see. Have people seen them?
Some people have seen them.
Mm-hmm.
Some people have been them before.
Right. Has Jasmine been them before?
Yes.
I think I knew that. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So there are no people that live inner earth?
No, not specifically people.
Okay, just different races.
Correct.
Okay, I see. All right.